The great hall on Centauri Prime had never felt so cold. Jake Morrison stood at the speaker's platform, looking out at the 47 different alien species that made up the Galactic Council. After 30 years of representing humanity among the stars, he had seen many debates in this chamber, but today felt different. Today felt final. The circular room stretched high above them, its walls covered in strange symbols from worlds across the galaxy. Each species had their own section, their own way of sitting or standing or floating. The hegemony members looked like living crystals, tall and sharp. The Vorthak delegation sat in pools of thick liquid that helped them breathe. The Cathari stood on 6 legs, their feathered heads turning to watch every movement. Jake's hands gripped the edge of the platform. His weathered face showed the stress of the past few months. Gray hair that had once been brown, lines around his eyes from too many late nights reading alien law books. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, looking plain. Next to the elaborate robes and natural decorations of the other species, behind him sat the rest of the human delegation. Director Lisa Hayes, a sharp woman in her 50s who ran Earth's intelligence networks. Commander Steve Johnson, a military man who had fought in the border wars. Dr. Helen Rodriguez, the scientist who had helped develop humanity's first faster-than-light engines, and 20 others, all watching as their future was decided by creatures who had never set foot on Earth. The issue being voted on was Resolution 2387B. Jake had read it so many times he could recite it from memory. The Council wanted to classify humans as a monitored species. This meant limits on their technology, restrictions on where they could travel, and constant oversight of their colonies. The reason given was humanity's rapid advancement and what the Council called aggressive expansion tendencies. What the Council really meant was that humans were growing too fast, learning too quickly, and spreading too far for their comfort. The voting had been going on for 3 hours. Species after species stood to cast their vote. The hegemony voted yes, of course, they had written the resolution. The Vorthak Collective voted yes. The Centauri Empire voted yes. One by one, the votes piled up against humanity. Only 3 species had spoken in favor of humans. The Cathari Collective had given a long speech about the value of diversity. The Free Traders Guild had pointed out how much money human colonies brought to the galactic economy. The Neutral Worlds Association had simply said that punishment without crime was wrong, but 3 votes against 44 meant nothing in the Council. Council Speaker Vextara stepped forward to announce the final count. The crystalline being stood 3 meters tall, its body reflecting the chamber's lights in rainbow patterns. When it spoke, its voice came from speakers built into the walls, translating the sound waves it made into words everyone could understand. The vote is complete, Vextara announced. 44 in favor, 3 against. Resolution 2387B passes by the required majority. The chamber erupted in a mixture of clicking, humming, and other sounds that served as applause for the various species. Jake felt his heart sink, but he kept his face calm. He had known this would happen. The vote had been decided before they even entered the chamber. The restrictions will take effect immediately, Vextara continued. All human vessels will be limited to approved travel routes. All human colonies will accept Council oversight stations. All human research will be subject to Council review before implementation. Jake looked back at his delegation. Lisa Hayes gave him a small nod. This was the moment they had planned for. The moment they had hoped would never come, but had prepared for. Anyway, Ambassador Morrison, Vextara called out. Does the human delegation have any response to this decision? Jake stood slowly. He looked around the chamber one more time, at the species that had shared meals with him, worked with him, and now voted to cage his people. Some would not meet his eyes. Others stared at him with expressions that might have been pity or satisfaction. We do, Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's sound system. For 30 years, humanity has been a loyal member of this council. We have contributed to its decisions, supported its missions, and followed its laws. We came here in good faith, seeking partnership and mutual growth. The chamber grew quiet. Even the background humming of life support systems seemed to fade. Instead, Jake continued, we found fear and prejudice dressed up as policy. We found a system that rewards stagnation and punishes progress. We found leaders who would rather limit others than improve themselves. Angry sounds started to rise from several delegations. Vexthara raised a crystalline hand for silence. Today, you have chosen to treat humanity as a threat rather than an ally. You have decided that our success is your failure. You have made it clear that there is no place for us in your vision of the galaxy. Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and a holographic document appeared in the air above the platform. It showed the official seal of Earth's government and was signed by President Kate Sullivan herself. Therefore, Jake announced, by the authority granted to me by the United Earth Government, I hereby announce humanity's complete withdrawal from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates jumped to their feet, or their equivalent of feet. Voices rose in dozens of languages, mixing into a wall of sound that the translation system could not handle. Some species seemed shocked, others appeared angry. A few looked almost relieved. Vexthara's voice boomed over the noise. Ambassador Morrison, you cannot simply withdraw from the Council. There are procedures, treaties, obligations. Jake gathered his papers calmly while the storm raged around him. We are withdrawing from all treaties with the Council. We are canceling all agreements. We are recalling all human personnel from Council facilities. As of this moment, humanity and the Galactic Council have no formal relationship. He looked directly at the Council speaker. We will forge our own path among the stars. Lisa Hayes stood and activated her communication device. Signal all human colonies and fleets, she said quietly, but Jake heard her. Operation Exodus begins. Now, the human delegation began to file out of the chamber. Jake was the last to leave. He paused at the door and looked back one final time at the species that had chosen to become humanity's opponents rather than its friends. You could have been part of something great, he said softly. Instead, you chose to stay small. As the doors closed behind them, Jake heard Vexthara calling for order, trying to restore calm to the chaos they had left behind. But Jake was already thinking ahead. They had work to do. Ships to redirect. Colonies to inform. A new future to build. The walk back to the human embassy felt longer than usual. Their footsteps echoed in the empty corridors of the Council complex. Other species personnel watched them pass with curious eyes, already sensing that something fundamental had changed. Are you sure about this? Dr. Rodriguez asked quietly. Jake nodded. They made the choice for us. We can either accept their cage or break free. I know which one I choose. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued its emergency session, trying to figure out what humanity's withdrawal meant for the galaxy. They would find out soon enough. The universe was about to discover what humans could accomplish when they stopped asking for permission. The moment humans left the Council, everything changed, and there would be no going back. 3 months had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. The galaxy was still trying to understand what humanity's withdrawal meant, but humans were not waiting for answers. They were already moving, Captain Ben. Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavor, watching the stars streak past as his ship jumped through hyperspace. The Endeavor was one of 50 ships in the largest human fleet ever assembled. They were heading toward the outer rim, far beyond the territories controlled by the Council. Jump complete, Captain, announced Navigator Tony Chun from his station. We are now in the Kepler 442 system. No Council presence detected. Ben nodded, studying the tactical display. The system showed 3 planets, 2 asteroid belts, and a small yellow sun. More importantly, it showed no alien ships, no monitoring stations, no Council flags claiming ownership. This was free space where humans could build whatever they wanted. Science Officer Price, what do your sensors show? Ben asked. Amanda Price looked up from her instruments, her face bright with excitement. Sir, this system is perfect. The second planet has an atmosphere we can breathe with minimal terraforming. The third planet has vast mineral deposits. And, the asteroid belts contain enough rare metals to supply our colonies for decades, Ben smiled. This was what they had been hoping for. Communications, send a message to Admiral Stone, tell him we have found our first new home. The message would take 3 days to reach Earth, but Ben knew what the Admiral's response would be. More ships, more colonists, more supplies. Humanity was not just leaving the Council's territory. They were expanding into new regions of space, at a rate that would have been impossible under Council restrictions. Back on Earth, President Kate Sullivan sat in the Oval Office, reviewing reports from across human space. The exodus was going better than anyone had dared hope. Colony ships were launching from Earth, Mars, and the Luna shipyards every week. Private companies were joining the effort, bringing their own vessels and resources. Madam President, said her aide, bringing in another stack of papers, we have confirmation from 17 different fleets. They have all found suitable systems for colonization in the Outer Rim. No Council interference reported. Kate picked up one of the reports. It was from Captain Lisa Morgan, commanding a fleet of mining vessels. Her ships had discovered a system, rich in quantum crystals, the rare materials needed for advanced computer systems. Under Council law, such discoveries had to be reported and shared with all member species. Now, those crystals belong to humanity alone. Any word from the Council? Kate asked. Nothing official, Madam President, but our intelligence sources report that several Council species are requesting emergency sessions. They seem concerned about our rapid expansion, Kate nodded. Let them be concerned. We are not breaking any laws. We are simply going where they fear to go. She activated her communication system and began recording a message that would be broadcast to every human, colony, and ship in space. My fellow humans, 3 months ago we made a choice. We chose freedom over safety, growth over stagnation, hope over fear. Today, I can report that our choice was correct. We are building new worlds, discovering new resources, and proving that humanity's potential cannot be limited by those who lack our vision. The message would reach millions of humans across the galaxy, but it would also be intercepted by alien intelligence services, sending a clear signal that humanity was not retreating. They were advancing in the cargo bay of the merchant vessel. Golden Eagle, Captain Paul Jenkins supervised the loading of supplies bound for the new colonies. His ship had been carrying trade goods between Council worlds for 20 years, but now he was part of something bigger, something that felt like destiny. Captain, called out his first mate Danny Miller, we have got medical supplies, construction equipment, and 500 colonists in cryogenic sleep. Ready for departure. Paul looked at the manifest. Everything needed to build a new civilization, packed into one ship. Set course for the New Horizon colony, maximum speed. The Golden Eagle was one of hundreds of civilian ships that had joined the Exodus. Merchants, explorers, scientists, and simple families looking for a fresh start. They were all heading toward the Outer Rim, toward the new worlds that human fleets were discovering every day. Some were running from the restrictions of Council space. Others were drawn by the promise of unlimited opportunity. But all of them were part of the same great movement that would reshape the galaxy. On Europa Station, one of Jupiter's moons, Commander Sam Carter worked in a heavily secured research facility. The sign on the door read Advanced Physics Laboratory, but the people inside knew it by a different name. They called it the Breakthrough Project. The quantum resonance tests are complete, reported Dr. Nancy Wilson, looking up from her computer. The new drive system is 30% more efficient than anything the Council has ever developed. Sam studied the data on his screen. For years, human scientists had been forced to follow Council technology guidelines. They had been told that certain research was too dangerous, that some discoveries should be left alone. Now, with those restrictions gone, they were finding out what humans could really accomplish. How long until we can install these drives in our ships? Sam asked. The prototype will be ready in 6 months, Nancy replied. Full production can begin within a year. Sam smiled. The council thought they knew human technology. They had no idea what humans had been developing in secret, waiting for the day when they could finally use it. That day had arrived. The breakthrough was not just in space travel. Human colonies were developing new farming techniques that could feed twice as many people with half the resources. Human factories were producing goods that surpassed council quality standards. Human doctors were finding cures for diseases that had puzzled alien physicians for centuries. Freedom was making humans more innovative, more creative, more capable than they had ever been under council oversight. The first sign that the council was taking notice came through unofficial channels. Ambassador Jake Morrison, now serving as Earth's special envoy to the Outer Rim colonies, received a coded message from an old friend in the Kethari collective. "The hegemony is asking questions," the message read. "They want to know how many ships you have, how many colonies you are building, how fast you are expanding. They are getting nervous." Jake shared the message with his staff. "Good," he said. "Let them be nervous. When you spend your time trying to limit others, you forget how to grow yourself." The truth was that even Jake was surprised by how quickly humanity was expanding. New colonies were being established every week. Trade routes were being mapped between human settlements. A new civilization was emerging in the Outer Rim, one built on human values of freedom, innovation, and unlimited potential. The Exodus had become something bigger than anyone had imagined. It was not just humans leaving council space. It was humans proving that there was a better way to live among the stars. Captain Maria Santos commanded the trade vessel Aurora, carrying supplies between the growing human colonies. Her ship had been attacked by pirates in council space just 6 months ago, and the council authorities had done nothing to help. Now, she was part of a network of human traders who protected each other, shared information, and built prosperity together. "Captain," called her communications officer, "we are receiving a message from Haven's Rest Station. They want to buy our entire cargo of medical supplies." Maria nodded. Haven's Rest was one of the newest human colonies, but it was already becoming a major trade hub. Ships from all over the Outer Rim stopped there to buy, sell, and resupply. It was everything the Council's trade stations claimed to be, but never achieved. "Tell them we will be there in 2 days," Maria said, "and ask if they need anything else. We are all in this together." As the Aurora changed course toward Haven's Rest, Maria looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council was probably holding emergency meetings about the human exodus. They were probably trying to figure out how to stop it, how to control it, how to limit it, but it was too late. Humanity had already left, and the universe would never be the same. 6 months after humanity left the Galactic Council, the first cracks began to show in the established order. The council chambers on Centauri Prime buzzed with nervous energy as representatives gathered for an emergency session. What they had expected to be humanity's downfall had become something entirely different: intelligence. Chief Zarthok of the hegemony stood before the assembled delegates, his crystalline form flickering with agitated colors. The report in his hands contained information that challenged everything the council believed about human capabilities. "The situation is unprecedented," Zarthok announced, his translated voice carrying across the chamber. "Human expansion has exceeded all projections. They have established 23 new colonies in the Outer Rim. Their population growth rate has increased by 40%. Most concerning, their technology appears to have advanced exponentially." Council Speaker Vexthara leaned forward. "Explain what you mean by exponentially." "Their new faster-than-light drives are 30% more efficient than our best technology," Zarthok continued. "Their ships can travel farther, faster, and with less fuel than anything in the Council fleet. Their manufacturing capabilities have doubled. Their agricultural output has tripled." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The Vorthek delegate, speaking through a bubbling translator, asked the question everyone was thinking. "How is this possible?" "We removed their access to advanced research databases. We cut off their technology sharing agreements." Zarthok's colors shifted to a darker shade. It appears they were conducting independent research all along. Research that was more advanced than anything they shared with us. The implications hit the chamber like a shock wave. For decades, the Council had assumed that member species shared their best technology freely. The idea that humans had been holding back their most advanced discoveries was disturbing enough. The fact that those discoveries surpassed Council technology was terrifying. Meanwhile, on the human colony world of New Horizon, Dr. Ryan Cooper worked in a laboratory that would have been impossible under Council restrictions. The research facility stretched across several acres, filled with equipment that pushed the boundaries of known science. The quantum resonance patterns are even more stable than we predicted, Ryan told his research team. When we removed the Council's safety protocols from our experiments, we discovered applications they never imagined. Dr. Jenny Walsh, his lead physicist, looked up from her instruments. The energy output is incredible. This single generator could power an entire city with no environmental impact, Ryan nodded. The breakthrough had come when they stopped following Council research guidelines. Those guidelines, they now realized, had been designed to prevent exactly this kind of discovery. The Council had been keeping all species at the same technological level, ensuring that no one could advance too far beyond the established order. How long until we can implement this in our colonies? Asked Dr. Mike Torres, the project's engineer. 6 months for the prototype, Ryan replied. Full deployment within 2 years. The implications were staggering. Unlimited clean energy would transform not just human colonies, but any civilization that possessed it. The Council's energy monopoly, based on their control of fusion technology, would become obsolete overnight. Similar breakthroughs were happening across human space. Dr. Karen Lee had developed medical scanners that could detect diseases years before symptoms appeared. Engineer Bob Mitchell had created construction materials that were stronger than anything the Council had ever produced. Scientist Alex Johnson had discovered new methods of food production that could feed entire worlds using minimal resources. The common thread was freedom. Without Council oversight, human scientists were exploring ideas that had been forbidden for decades. They were asking questions that the Council had declared too dangerous to answer. The first sign of how this would affect the broader galaxy came through the trade networks. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the merchant vessel Aurora, docked at the neutral trading station of Crossroads Deep. The station served as a meeting point for traders from across the galaxy, both Council and non-Council species. Captain Santos, called out Station Master Velkin, a member of the reptilian saurian species, I have been waiting for you. My medical staff are very interested in your new scanning equipment. Maria smiled. The bioscanners? They are impressive. Detected a plague outbreak on Kepler Station before anyone even felt sick. Velkin's eyes widened. A plague that Council medical technology missed? Completely missed, Maria confirmed. Our scanners identified the pathogen and provided treatment protocols that cured the entire population within days. Word of the incident spread quickly through the trading networks. Soon, medical facilities across the galaxy were requesting human bioscanners. The Council's medical monopoly, built on their control of diagnostic technology, began to crumble as species realized there were better alternatives available. The economic impact was immediate and devastating to the Council's power structure. Trade routes that had flowed through Council space for centuries began shifting toward human trading posts. The reason was simple. Human goods were better, cheaper, and more innovative than anything the Council could offer on the trading station. Of Haven's Rest, Commander Doug White watched as ships from dozens of species arrived daily. The station had been built in just 4 months, but it was already handling more trade than some Council facilities that had existed for decades. Sir, reported his aide, Lieutenant Carol Davis, we have got requests from 18 different species to establish permanent trade offices here. They want to bypass Council tariffs and regulations. Doug nodded. The Council's complex trade laws, designed to control commerce and maintain their power, were driving customers away. Human trading posts offered simple, fair deals with no bureaucratic delays. Any word from the Council about our activities? Doug asked. Nothing official, Carol replied, but our intelligence sources report that several council species are requesting emergency economic sessions. They seem concerned about the shift in trade patterns. The concern was justified. The council's economy depended on their control of trade routes, technology licensing, and resource distribution. As species began dealing directly with human colonies, that control was slipping away. The most significant development came from an unexpected source. The Cathari Collective, one of the council's founding members, sent a secret delegation to the human colony of New Geneva. Ambassador Julie Bennett met with Cathari Prime Minister Velther in a closed session that would have shocked the council. "We are interested in your energy technology," Velther said directly. "The council's fusion reactors are outdated and expensive. Your quantum generators could transform our civilization." Julie studied the alien leader carefully. "What are you proposing?" "A direct technology exchange," Velther replied. "Outside." "Oh, council oversight. We have resources you need, and you have innovations we require." The meeting marked the first time a council species had openly sought to bypass the organization's technology-sharing agreements. It would not be the last. Within weeks, similar meetings were happening across human space. The Neutral Worlds Association sent delegations to 3 different human colonies. The Free Traders Guild established permanent offices on 4 human stations. Even some hegemony worlds began sending unofficial representatives to explore potential deals. The council's response was swift and panicked. Emergency sessions were called. New restrictions were proposed. Threats were made against species that dealt with human colonies, but the damage was already done. The galaxy had seen what was possible when species were free to innovate, trade, and grow without bureaucratic interference. The Council's promise of stability and order seemed less attractive when compared to the dynamism and opportunity that human colonies offered. Dr. Nicole Adams, working on a joint research project with Cathari scientists, realized the true scope of what humanity had unleashed. "We did not just leave the Council," she told her colleague. "We showed everyone else that they could leave too." The quantum resonance generator hummed quietly in the background, producing more energy than the entire Council had thought possible. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when intelligent beings were free to pursue their potential without artificial limitations. The universe was changing, and the Council was powerless to stop it. They had created the situation by trying to cage humanity. Now they were facing the consequences of their own fear and _SIGHTEDNESS. The Exodus had become something much bigger than anyone had imagined. It was not just humans leaving Council space. It was the beginning of a new era where freedom and innovation would replace control and stagnation as the driving forces of galactic civilization. 2 years after humanity left the Galactic Council, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The rigid order that had governed civilization for thousands of years was crumbling, replaced by something dynamic and unpredictable: the Council Chambers. On Centauri Prime, once the center of galactic power, now felt like a museum of a dying era. Admiral Chris Parker stood on the bridge of the UES Frontier, humanity's first true battleship. The massive vessel was not built for conquest, but for protection of the growing human territories. Through the viewports he could see the edge of Council space, where hegemony patrol ships maintained a careful distance from human borders. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Gary Thompson, "the hegemony fleet is holding position at the boundary marker. They have been watching us for 6 hours, but have not moved closer." Chris nodded, studying the tactical display. 12 hegemony warships hung in space like predators waiting for prey. But they were not attacking. They were afraid. The Council had learned that human military capabilities were as advanced as their civilian technology, and the results were unknown quantities. "Any communications from their fleet?" Chris asked. "Nothing official, sir," replied Communications Officer Rachel Brown. "But we are picking up encrypted chatter between their ships. They seem to be discussing our weapon systems." Chris smiled grimly. The hegemony ships were trying to scan the frontier's defenses, but human stealth technology made their sensors useless. The aliens could see the ship, but they had no idea what it was capable of. That uncertainty was keeping the peace better than any treaty. The truth was that humans had no intention of starting a war. They were too busy building their new civilization to waste time on conquest. But the Council did not know that, and their fear was reshaping the balance of power across the galaxy. On the diplomatic front, Ambassador Julia Bennett found herself in a position that would have been impossible under the old system. Her office on the human colony of New Geneva had become an unofficial embassy for species seeking alternatives to Council membership. "Ambassador," announced her assistant, Carl Martinez, "we have received formal requests from 12 species to establish trade embassies here. They want to bypass the Council entirely." Julia looked at the list of species requesting embassy status. Some were minor worlds that had always been ignored by the Council. Others were major civilizations that had grown tired of Council bureaucracy. All of them represented a fundamental shift in how galactic politics worked. "Any response from the Council?" Julia asked. "They have sent several strongly worded messages demanding that we refuse these requests," Carl replied. "They claim that direct diplomatic relations with non-Council species violate interstellar law." Julia laughed. "Whose law?" "They expelled us from their organization. We are not bound by their rules anymore." The situation was unprecedented. For the first time in galactic history, there was a major power that existed completely outside the Council system. Species that had disagreements with the Council could now seek alternatives. The monopoly on interstellar diplomacy was broken. The breaking point came when the Cathari Collective made an announcement that sent shock waves through the galaxy. Prime Minister Velther stood before the Council Assembly and delivered a speech that would be remembered for generations. "The Galactic Council has become an institution of stagnation," Velther declared. "We came together to promote peace and prosperity, but instead we have created a system that punishes innovation and rewards mediocrity. We have chosen to limit ourselves rather than grow." The chamber erupted in protests, but Velther continued. "The human species showed us another way. They proved that civilization can advance without permission, that progress does not require approval from a committee. We choose to follow their example." Council Speaker Vexthara S. crystalline form flickered with agitation. "Prime Minister, you cannot simply leave the Council. There are obligations, treaties, procedures." "We are withdrawing from all Council agreements," Velther replied calmly. "Effective immediately, the Cathari Collective will forge its own path among the stars. We will not be the last species to make this choice." The prediction proved correct. Within days of the Cathari announcement, 3 more species declared their independence from the Council. The Saurian Republic, the Neutral Worlds Association, and the Free Traders Guild all followed the Cathari example. The exodus was not limited to minor species. The departure of the Cathari Collective, one of the Council's founding members, proved that even the most established civilizations could break free from the old system. The message was clear. The Council's authority was no longer absolute. Dr. Nicole Adams worked in a joint research facility on New Geneva, collaborating with scientists from 6 different species. The laboratory represented everything the Council had claimed to support but had never achieved: true cooperation between species, without bureaucratic interference or political restrictions. "The quantum field generators are working perfectly," announced Dr. Kethver, a Cathari physicist. "The energy output is stable and sustainable." Nicole smiled as she watched the readings on her instruments. This project would have taken decades under the Council system. Too many committees, too many approvals, too many restrictions. The joint research program was producing innovations at a rate that amazed everyone involved. When intelligent beings were free to share ideas without political interference, the results were extraordinary. Medical breakthroughs that would save millions of lives. Energy systems that could power entire civilizations. Transportation methods that would revolutionize space travel. How long until we can begin full-scale implementation? Asked Dr. Zixtal, a Saurian engineer. 6 months, Nicole replied. We are already building the manufacturing facilities on 3 different worlds. The collaboration was voluntary, profitable, and mutually beneficial. Everything the Council's forced cooperation had never been, the economic transformation was equally dramatic. Human colonies had become centers of innovation and trade, attracting commerce from across the galaxy. The new Geneva system served as a hub for half the galaxy's independent trade. With ships from dozens of species docking at human stations daily, Governor Linda Park watched the traffic control displays from her office overlooking the main spaceport. Hundreds of ships arrived and departed every day, carrying goods, passengers, and ideas between the growing network of free worlds. Governor, reported her aide, Captain Roy Wilson, we have got requests from 15 more species to establish permanent trade offices here. Our facilities are operating at maximum capacity, Linda nodded. Begin construction on the second commercial district and start planning for a third. This growth is not going to slow down. The success of human trading posts was forcing the Council to compete for the first time in centuries. They were offering better deals, reducing tariffs, and streamlining regulations, but it was too late. The free market had shown what was possible when bureaucracy was removed from commerce. The transformation was not just economic or political. It was philosophical. The rigid caste systems and technological limitations that had defined galactic civilization for millennia were giving way to something humanity had introduced. The concept that any species could achieve anything if they had the will to try. Captain Scott Davis commanded a mixed-crew exploration vessel, the Pathfinder, with members from 8 different species working together as equals. Under the Council system, such integration would have been impossible. Species hierarchies and cultural restrictions would have prevented real cooperation. Jump coordinates locked in, announced Engineer Tara Johnson, a human, ready for departure. Quantum drive charged, reported Science Officer Velkin, a Saurian. All systems green. Take us out, Scott ordered. The Pathfinder jumped to hyperspace, heading toward uncharted regions of the galaxy. The mission would have been illegal under Council law, which restricted exploration to approved zones. Now the only limit was how far they were willing to go. The universe was becoming a place where merit mattered more than politics, where innovation was rewarded rather than restricted, where cooperation was voluntary rather than forced. The Council's promise of stability was being replaced by something better, the opportunity for every species to reach its full potential. The change was irreversible. The galaxy had tasted freedom, and there was no going back to the old ways of control and limitation. The Council's authority was crumbling, and a new era of galactic civilization was beginning. 5 years after humanity's exodus from the Galactic Council, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The rigid hierarchies and technological restrictions that had defined galactic civilization for millennia had crumbled completely. In their place stood something new, something that honored the potential of every intelligent species. Captain Tony Martinez commanded the exploration vessel, Pathfinder, as it prepared for its most ambitious mission yet. The ship's crew included members from 12 different species, all working together as equals in ways that would have been impossible under the old Council system. Jump drive charging, announced Engineer Sarah Thompson from her station. The quantum drive technology that powered their ship was a joint development between human, Cathari, and Saurian scientists. No single species could have created it alone, but together they had achieved something remarkable. Navigation systems ready, reported Pilot Kethver, his feathered Cathari head turning toward the captain. Next stop, the Andromeda approach. Vector. Tony nodded as he looked around the bridge. 5 years ago, such a mission would have required decades of Council approval. Multiple committees would have reviewed every aspect of the plan. Countless regulations would have restricted their activities. Now they were free to explore the unknown reaches of space, limited only by their own courage and imagination. Take us out, Tony ordered. The Pathfinder jumped to hyperspace, heading toward the edge of the galaxy. They were part of the great Exploration Initiative, a voluntary cooperation between 23 different species. Together, they were mapping new regions of space, discovering new worlds, and expanding the boundaries of known civilization. Back in the heart of what had once been Council space, the transformation was even more dramatic. The new Geneva system had become the unofficial capital of the Free Galaxy, a hub of commerce, diplomacy, and innovation that attracted visitors from across the known universe. Governor Linda Park stood on the observation deck of Geneva Station, watching ships from dozens of species dock at the massive facility. The station had grown from a simple trading post to a city in space, home to over 2 million beings from 40 different worlds. "Governor," said her aide, bringing her the daily activity report, "we processed 3,000 vessel movements yesterday. Trade volume is up 18% from last month. And we have got requests from 6 more species to establish permanent diplomatic missions here." Linda smiled as she reviewed the numbers. The free market economy that had developed around human colonies was generating prosperity on a scale the galaxy had never seen. Without the Council's restrictive trade laws and bureaucratic delays, commerce flowed freely between worlds that had barely interacted before. "Any word from the old Council territories?" Linda asked. "The reports are not good for them," her aide replied. "Their trade volume continues to decline. Several more worlds are requesting permission to leave the Council and join the Free Worlds Association." The Free Worlds Association had been humanity's greatest diplomatic achievement. What had started as a simple trade agreement between human colonies and a few independent species had grown into a loose confederation of free civilizations. Membership was voluntary, cooperation was based on mutual benefit, and every species retained complete sovereignty over their own affairs. It was everything the Galactic Council had claimed to be, but never achieved. The contrast was stark. The remaining Council territories were stagnating under their old systems of control and restriction. Innovation had slowed to a crawl. Trade was hampered by outdated regulations. Young members of Council species were leaving for free worlds where they could pursue their dreams without bureaucratic interference. Dr. Ryan Cooper, now director of the Galactic Research Initiative, worked in a laboratory that spanned 3 different star systems. Scientists from 15 species collaborated on projects that pushed the boundaries of known science. Their latest breakthrough would have been impossible under the Council's old technology sharing restrictions. "The Universal Translator is working perfectly," announced Dr. Velther, the Cathari linguist who had led the language processing team. "Real-time communication between any 2 species with full cultural context and emotional nuance." Ryan looked at the device with wonder. For the first time in galactic history, beings from different worlds could communicate as easily as if they spoke the same language. The barriers between species were falling one by one. "How long until we can begin?" "Mass production?" asked Dr. Zixtal, the Saurian engineer overseeing manufacturing. "The factories on New Horizon are already building the first units," Ryan replied. "Within 6 months, every world in the Free Worlds Association will have access to this technology." The implications were staggering. Perfect communication would accelerate cooperation between species, leading to even greater innovations and discoveries. The galaxy was entering a new golden age of scientific advancement. The political transformation was equally remarkable. The First Galactic Assembly had convened on New Geneva, bringing together representatives from 37 different species. Unlike the old Council, the Assembly had no power to impose laws or restrictions on its members. Its only purpose was to facilitate voluntary cooperation and peaceful resolution of disputes. Ambassador Jake Morrison, now serving as the Assembly's first speaker, stood before the gathered delegates. At 75, he had lived to see his wildest dreams become reality. The galaxy he had fought to create was flourishing beyond his imagination. 5 years ago, Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the assembly hall, humanity made a choice. We chose to leave a system that limited our potential and restricted our growth. We did not leave because we thought we were better than others. We left because we believed everyone deserved the chance to reach their full potential. The delegates, representing species from across the galaxy, listened with rapt attention. Some had been part of the original exodus from Council space. Others had joined the free worlds more recently. All of them shared a common vision of what galactic civilization could become. Today, Jake continued, we see the results of that choice. Trade between our worlds has increased by 400%. Scientific discoveries are happening at 10 times the rate we achieved under the old system. New colonies are being established every month. Most importantly, every species in our association is free to pursue their own destiny. The assembly hall erupted in approval from representatives of 37 species. The sound was beautiful. In its diversity, clicking, humming, chirping, and dozens of other expressions of joy and agreement. The success of the free worlds had forced even the remaining council territories to change. The Galactic Council still existed, but it governed fewer than 15 species now. Those who remain had been forced to abandon many of their restrictive policies just to prevent further defections. Vexthara, the former council speaker, had been replaced by a more moderate leader who spoke of reform and renewal, but it was too late. The galaxy had moved beyond the need for centralized authority. The future belonged to voluntary cooperation and free association. Captain Maria Santos, now commanding a fleet of merchant vessels, docked at Haven's rest station for what had become a monthly supply run. The station that had started as a simple trading post was now a major commercial hub, serving ships from across the galaxy. "Captain," called Station Master Doug White as she disembarked. "Good to see you again. How was the run to the Outer Rim?" "Profitable," Maria replied with a smile. "The new colonies are growing fast. They need everything we can bring them." Doug nodded. "That's the beauty of a free market. Supply meets demand without government interference." As Maria looked around the bustling station, she marveled at how much had changed. Beings from dozens of species worked together, traded together, and built prosperity together. Not because they were forced to by some distant authority, but because they chose to. The transformation was complete. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy, they had liberated it. They had shown that intelligent beings could cooperate without coercion, innovate without permission, and prosper without restriction. The universe had indeed never been the same since the moment humans left the council. It was better. It was free. And it was just the beginning of what was possible when civilizations were allowed to reach for the stars without limits. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson humanity had to offer, that freedom and cooperation could achieve more than control and restriction ever could.